Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, all of you, for being here too. Now, longevity and health span. These are two words that are bandied about in social media and everyday parlance right now. To set the ball rolling, I'm going to ask each of you a very simple question. What does longevity mean to you? So, okay, Tanya, take it away.
I was hoping I could
We're being
think about
gentlemen.
that for a little bit.
We're being gentlemen.
I think the question of longevity is one thing, but the healthy longevity is a key component to that. And is there a probability of being healthy for longer? I think that's a debatable question and something people strive to. I personally don't necessarily know how long I prefer to live, but I do want to live a healthy life. And so how do we take steps to do that is certainly of interest. I'm still navigating, I think, what that means as a mom, a career woman, and traveling the world. That is complex and needing to navigate that.
It's certainly complex. Imad, why don't you follow up?
Well, I have a personal definition. It's living till 200 healthy. That's so nice. Practically doubling our lifespan in a healthy way. So that's my
your personal
goal.
metric, your personal KPI.
Yeah.
Okay, Vivek, what's your perspective? What is longevity?
I think it's what most of us are evaluating right now, post-COVID especially, lifespan versus health span, right? We're actually taking a real look at it. You're a big proponent. You've been speaking so much and so well, educating people. Sophia, you've been doing a great job with that.
Thank you.
But I think it's something that each of us must ask ourselves. And I think that is the true definition of longevity. If you are living, but you're on a ventilator, God forbid, in a hospital, is that life? So is it number of years or is it the quality of life? I think that's the most important feature of longevity. I want to be fit. I remember there was a time when I was growing up, and being an actor, I think you could take this coming from me. I used to think that somebody who's turning 50 is an uncle, right? And today I am that uncle. But a lot of people, when I meet them, and I'm surprised, Sophia, that they say, "Oh, you're 49. You don't look 49." And while it's a compliment, it also tells you what the expectation is, what standard it is. And taking care of yourself should be not just something for the rich and famous or wealthy. It should be for everybody, down to the last mile. I think that's the big challenge in longevity.
Rightly said. You raised a great point about, the kind of almost luxury aspect of longevity. So let's just spend a few minutes discussing that. As you rightly mentioned, right now, many people see longevity as something that is, a luxury asset or an investable asset. So with your investor lens on and your entrepreneurial lens on, how do you see that playing out in the GCC? And do you think this is a sector that you would invest in, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, I would invest in it. But I think it's interesting because I believe that a lot of lifestyle-oriented approaches, products, belief systems percolate from the top 1% at the top of the pyramid of influence, not necessarily wealth, but influence. You'll see that all these guys who are now tech billionaires, they're suddenly practicing some fantastic, longevity lifestyle exercises and endorsing or putting their money and their weight or their influence behind all of this. But while they were on that journey, they never did. So it's not something that they always did. They evolved into that. I think coming from India, though, we have the ability to kind of find a mid-path while there is still a luxury element at top. And our business at B&W is all about luxury. And our idea would be to create luxury spaces where you can go to the physical along with the digital, along with the genomics, along with the preemptive, analytical, adaptive, but also blending in science with ancient wisdom.
Absolutely.
Coming from a land of Ayurveda, coming in from what herbs can do. I mean, today we're sold in dollar signs curcumin, but our grandmothers used to put haldi in everything, and we've all grown up eating that. And now we know the benefits of why. I think that bridge will bring the divide between the top 1% and the bottom 99. It'll narrow that divide. It'll bring them closer. I think that's the bridge to focus on. What can start, like the drips here in the UAE, that used to be so expensive and you had to go to a place in Austria or some part of the world to get those drips, the IV drips. You're getting them on a phone call delivered to your home today. While you're in Dubai, you could sit at home, you could sit in your office and have a NAD drip coming in. So that kind of popularization of technology, I think down the chain will explode soon.
Thank you, Vivek. I think you've summed up the luxury of longevity very compellingly for us. Imad, I want to take a step forward now from the macro perspective. Someone once referred to me that you are the goat of private equity in the Middle East. So tell us, what do you think are the fundamentals? What do you look at when you look at longevity in the region and with that global lens?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at longevity or where you invest in longevity, we haven't really cracked it yet. I mean, there are a lot of attempts, a lot of startups. The Middle East has a dearth of these startups, but even when you go to Europe, where we do invest as well, there aren't really a lot of these startups. And they are still at the early stages in terms of really impacting the goal or the definition like we have mentioned. So we're looking for that startup that will really convince us that it will impact the lifespan of humans at a large scale. There is a lot of attempts in my own view, and we probably have to bet early and test the market, but nothing like 100% convincing. The Middle East itself, the GCC in particular, there is, I would say, fewer startups and ideas around here.
What I sense from the conversation, though, is we're still really thinking about that kind of top 1%, right? Who is really thinking about their right to live longer. But what about all of us? What about Healthspan as a social and national imperative? Tonya, I want to draw you in on this because Oxford Nanopore's technologies you have new generation sensing technology, and that can really open up long lead sequencing in new ways. So when we talk about impact from a societal perspective, I truly believe Healthspan is for all. What do you see as the most impactful applications for improving Healthspan right now and over a 10-year course?
Yeah. I think technology is interesting in that we think about it from a digitalization, but an access, and something we've talked about, is it a luxury or not? Well, Healthspan, healthcare in general, shouldn't be a luxury. It should be something that we all have access to. And by doing that, you need technology that's going to allow for that. And so Oxford Nanopore thinks about it in how can we digitize data to be available and impactful for everybody, and also make sure that the tools in which we provide from a technology standpoint are of a footprint that can be conceived of as close to either the consumer or the patient. So is there the potential that today we are in a centralized model, but moving into the future, we are in a GP's office, we are in the home of every individual? One thing around longevity and lifespan, it's complex, right? It's the underlying genetics is a key factor of how well someone's longevity is. And I think we're just scratching the surface of those genetic markers to understand risk for disease and potential longevity. That also implies that we understand every population, and that is so far from where we are today. We characterize quite well the European populations. There's a lot of work to do in the global south and other regions where we have more diversity, and we don't yet understand that. So having a technology that brings all of those factors, the form factor, the accessibility, the richness of data into one solution where we can replace that and have it accessible to everyone is certainly something that I think will be the future. We also need to think about who has access to this and at what point. There is the concept of a lifetime genome. Is that at birth, where you can take advantage of all of these genetic markers? Of course, there's ethical questions of whether that's true. And so at what point in time do you want to think about genetics and how that plays into your longevity journey? Because if you don't understand your underlying risk, anything that I do from environmental, from a food standpoint, is potentially limiting to that optimization.
Yeah, thank you, Tonya. I think you've exemplified that intersection exactly of technology and science, and you've made a really important point about reference data sets. And I see many people of Indian origin, of course, here in the audience, and one thing that fascinates me, we talk about bone density, right? As we get older, it's really important to measure our bone density. And you may look at what you get, the Americans call the Z-score or the Z-score. I call it the Z-score, being a Brit. But the Z-score is actually referenced to a white European population. So imagine for all of us, Indian ladies and men sitting in the audience, what does that score really mean? And so what I'm passionate about as well is thinking about how do we create normal data for this part of the world and for South Asia. So when we think about our bone density or other important metrics, it truly reflects who we are. Now, in the last few minutes of this panel, no longevity panel is complete without the panelists revealing their own biohacks, okay? So I'm going to start. For me, some of you know this from last night where I was expounding this on the bus home. It's sleep. Sleep is my superpower, and I prioritize everything over that. So, but just very quickly, if we can maybe start with Imad, and then Vivek and Tonya, you can have the
Well, I was telling you, I go with Wim Hof. I don't know if you hear of Wim Hof. So,
great method.
So I go every year. So this year we're going to North Lapland to do hiking. Shorts, boots, and minus 20 degrees. So that's
Minus
the
20.
limits.
Okay.
Regulated by the breathing, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can sustain,
breathing,
but
the Wim Hof.
really you see the power of the mind and the body working together at the limit, because you're at survival limit at that time.
Exception.
And it becomes like one. It's an amazing personal experience. It's really a spiritual experience. It's not only physical.
Very nice.
I struggle to do it for 3 minutes in the gym.
What other biohacks are you interested in, Vivek?
For me, I don't know. I mean, I've been discovering a lot of interesting things rooted in Indian culture, which is yoga. I didn't realize, but there's a kind of pranayam that can actually create autophagy in the body. And I've been, at this stage and age in my life, been focused on autophagy. And aside from, the food, the diet, and there's so many interesting things. I met a lady from Morocco who said that, this is something that her grandmother used to do, where they used to have, olive oil only through the day for a few days in the week every month. And I just realized that is one of the best kickstarters for autophagy. We have it in Islam when you're looking at the Rozas, where you have it in the Navratras in Hinduism. So the Lent in Christianity, I assume. So it's there. It's ancient wisdom, which is now being backed by science. So I focus a lot on autophagy. I'm still trying to figure out being as brave as Imad in the Wim Hof, but I'm very curious.
Thank you. So autophagy, right? From autophagy to technology. Tonya, what do you practice?
I have to say I'm not as adventurous as you or dedicated as yourself. So unfortunately, I think the thing that I focus on is just being realistic with myself and clean living and clean eating. Given that I travel considerably, I try to not overindulge. But we did talk about on the bus the other night of what I feel is my optimization does include indulging sometimes when I feel like that's socially appropriate and what I should be doing. So yes, I do enjoy an occasional celebration and champagne, as we should, and that's my choice.
Joy
Fantastic.
and vitality.
Champagne tonight, Tonya.
Yeah.
Well, joy and vitality, Healthspan, dear colleagues, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
And what I would say is it's well known when it comes to Healthspan and leading a longer life that social connection is really an important factor and a feeling of joy and vitality. So I think we should thank all of us, but of course, IGF for bringing us together to have those social connections. So I wish you a evening and afternoon full of joy and vitality. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you.